big win Sunday, Tampa Bay, staying alive for that playoff hunt. You could see and feel the tone from this team right off the bat, able to come out a long drive down the field and getting 6 points on the board right away was so key in that Bucs matchup.
I thought our opening drive was a real key, send a message. I felt like, Tampa was kind of ready to get out there and get on with the game and celebrate. And for us to come out, smash them in the mouth, take that opening drive down and score and set the tone for a really dominant first half. We had over 200 yards of offense in the first half. I think they had less than 50. It was a dominant performance. And really, the game was won in the first half. I think, their first 7 possessions, they had 5 punts and 2 turnovers. They got a couple scores late to put the interest in the game, but I never really felt like it was out of our grasp.
There's always a lot put on coaching. There's a lot of debate, a lot of criticism, some of it fair, some not so fair. But to me, I've always felt like these kind of rematch divisional games are a really kind of big litmus test for not only the team, but for the coaching. Because it's one thing to have the team prepared week in, week out, whatever the challenge is. But it's another thing when you know what they want to do and they know what you want to do. You can throw in some wrinkles, but at the end of the day, the offense is the offense. The defense is the defense. And so that's why personally, I take a little bit more encouragement out of a game like that, where not only you went into their house, you dominated, you got a win that you needed to have. And, I'm curious as to, when you kind of evaluate the season and you evaluate the results, do those games mean a little more? Because obviously the straightest line of the playoffs is through the division. And whether, obviously it's 3-2 right now, a 4-2 division record, whenever it happens, is a positive result.
I think there's a little bit of truth to that. I don't know that I put that much stock into it because, look, your division opponents better than anyone else because you're playing them twice a year. But I think too often we put too much stock in. Well, I don't know that we put too much stock in it, but I think that most of the people that I hear in the media that are evaluating coaches aren't really qualified to do that because they don't know what's being coached. They don't know what's being told during the week. And there's a difference between what they're being told and what's being executed sometimes. So there's some truth to what, to your comment, but I don't think there's as much, I don't put as much stock into it as you might.
Mickey, another thing, like fans and media, we really don't know what sometimes players are dealing with. And to see Derek Carr go out there, the performance he had, really had some nice throws, accurate, efficient, and even heard from Dennis Allen after the game talk about how that shoulder injury was something that might have been something bothering him that he's just able to work through, but didn't seem like it was an issue at all last game, obviously.
Look, I think overall Derek's done some really good things this season. And if you look at some of the areas, his rating, his efficiency, there's a lot of really good things that we've done. There's some things that he hasn't done well. And how he feels each week. Obviously, he had a shoulder injury, early in the season, and that there's no question that bothered him. We didn't handle pressure very well earlier in the season. And I think, in the last 4 or 5 games in particular, our offensive line and our protection has been better. So there's all these variables, all these elements that contribute to the quarterback play. And look, we all look at the quarterback and we look at the head coach, and that's where we want to point blame and oftentimes you give credit, and yet there's just so much more to it than that. But what you said is correct. Derek has had a great game against Tampa. It was really efficient. There still was some meat left on the bone. There's still opportunities that were to be had that maybe would have put that game even further out of reach. And we've had a few things like that. I think this season has been a tale of we've had quarters and halves and parts of games where you can see what we can be, but it's hard to point to a lot of games and say from beginning to end, this is what we are. And that's not unusual. I mean, this is Derek's first year with us. And if we went back to 2006 and looked at Breeze's first season or two with us, you wouldn't say, wow, that guy's going to the Hall of Fame after season 1 or season 2. So, sometimes it takes a while for us to be familiar with him, for him to have a real grasp of the offense in terms of being reactive instead of thinking and then making a play and getting on the same page with, our staff, our coaches, as well as our players.
Yeah, and I think that point is interesting. And I did want to ask you about that because you're looking at, year one of DA and Derek Carr together. And as you're evaluating it, how important is it to kind of take a step back and avoid just trying to say, well, this is what it was in 2020 with, year 15 of Sean or whatever it was with Drew and Sean versus, this is a new regime, and you have to kind of look at them independently of like, okay, where are we really? How have we improved? What needs to be fixed versus getting into that game of, oh, well, this is what Drew and Sean did.
I would say that most of that process comes after the season. I don't like to make evaluations in season because, you're dealing with the emotion of winning and losing each week, and you're dealing with the issues that come up on a daily basis to prepare for the next game. But that'll be a process we go through, and I go through when the season's over. I certainly have a few thoughts and a few things that I think we need to have a discussion about, but that'll all come after the season's over, and hopefully the season won't be over after Sunday.
One of the things after the game that I thought was interesting, Tyron said that he was asked to kind of stand up on Saturday and kind of rally the troops, if you will. The DBs really responded, he said, and in the game, I think you saw that play out. And so my question is, as you're building a roster, right, how important is it to you not only have youth, you want to have young guys, you want to have guys that are developing, but you also need the Tyrann Matthews of the world, the Demario Davises, guys that have been there, because I think at the end of a season, it's almost always the teams that have those kind of core leaders that seem to be playing their best football at the end of the year. So, I mean, how important do you kind of view that veteran leadership as you're building these rosters every year?
Yeah, I think it's huge. I do. I think that each year, we end up with a Super Bowl winner, right? And I would say in the last, 40 years that very seldom is the Super Bowl winner the team that has the best roster. It's the best team. And you have the best team when you have great player leadership, and when you have guys that recognize, veteran players that recognize what's important and can keep their team on that path, keep them focused and on that path, doing the right things when no one's looking, preparing the right way each week. And it's just critical. I know that in the best teams that we've had over the years, we had great veteran leadership. In that 06 to 2012 run, it was Breeze and it was Vilma and Will Smith and Malcolm Jenkins and a number of guys that I'm not even naming. Jabari Greer comes to mind. So we just had guys that understood what the goal was, what the focus is, and how to keep our team and their position group in line and focus to that goal.
In a similar vein, I think DA has talked a couple of times about, challenging some players. I know Jawan Johnson was one of those players. Alontae Taylor obviously he got benched against the Rams, came back, got his first career interception, had a really nice game. And, so I'm curious, when you see players not only have big games, but respond to adversity in that way, what is kind of, how do you see that?
Yeah, two different circumstances. Look, we have high expectations for Juwan. He had a really good game. And look, I said to him afterwards, that's what we expect from you. Let's not get overly excited about having one good game. We expect that from him each and every week. And I think the good news is he expects that of himself. But at some point you have to produce it, and he produced it in this game. And so hopefully he'll follow that up with another one and another one. Alontae, look, he got benched last week, but he got pulled out of the game for his play. Let's just be frank about it. And I was really proud of him and really excited to see him respond, take it the right way, and come back with a really good performance. And that he's a good player and he's got a great future, and that was really good to see.
Yeah, as we head into week 18, there's 20 teams still alive for a potential postseason berth, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Obviously, the Saints are one of those teams. There's been a lot of talk about the atmosphere in the Dome, maybe not some of the best results throughout this season, last season, but, how exciting is it to be able to walk into that building knowing that, this is a week 18 game against the Falcons. You can go out there and win. And, what kind of atmosphere are you, expecting or hoping for this Sunday?
First of all, I think the atmosphere in the Dome has been as good as it's been for a long time. It's been really good this year. When it's not good, it's really our fault because we're not playing well enough to give the fans something to get excited about. And so that's on us. Like I said, I think I said this earlier, the only disappointing thing that happened this year was when we had so many Detroit fans, for that game against Detroit. And I get it though. People have an opportunity to cash their tickets in and get some money at a time when they need it. I understand that completely. But it's the fans have been fantastic. They really have. And again, we're going to have a great atmosphere. It's Atlanta. It's always a good atmosphere when we play Atlanta.